Hey, I'm Randy and I'm the Cheap Audio Man. Here at the Cheap Audio Man, we usually review things that don't cost more than my first car that I ever purchased. And this doesn't. This is the Wharfedale Evo 4.2. But listen, we're just reviewing a few expensive things on here. We're still the Cheap Audio Man. We're still going to go back to our roots. But this is a $1,000 bookshelf speaker. This is the Wharfedale Evo 4.2. So sit down, grab a cup of coffee, and let's talk about this beautiful big bookshelf speaker. Today's sponsor is AudioLine Vintage Receiver Cleaner. When you can only get a specific tool for your specific application when you're restoring your vintage receivers. That's why you should go to AudioLine. They've been providing vintage receiver restoration tools since 2007? Yeah, 2007. Audio Falcon vintage receiver restoration tools. You can get a pack of 2 of them for $35.99. Seems like an odd price, doesn't it? The Wharfedale Evo 4.2. Okay, so this is a 3-way bookshelf speaker. It's quite big for a bookshelf speaker, but it's got to be to fit all those 3 drivers in there. It has an AMT tweeter, a 2-inch, 2-dose-inch soft dome mid-range driver, and a 6.5-inch woven fiber, I got it right the first time, Kevlar woofer mid-bass driver, whatever you want to call it. It's also bottom ported. There's a little slot here, there's a port in the middle, and then it breathes through the slot here. On the back there are bi-ampable binding posts that are offset, which are really cool. I love the way Wharfedale does that. The whole thing is quality. It's vinyl on the side, okay, but it's very well done. It's kind of curvy. It's not like a rectangle, so it kind of goes back at a curve on the back. They're a good looking speaker. They have magnetic grills. They're 88 dB sensitive, 8 ohm nominal impedance. And as I said before, they are $999 a pair. I tested this speaker in a variety of rooms. I started out with the Emotiva P21 going into the A2 power amp. I did that in my living room, big room, tall ceilings, wide room. I also tested this with the Marantz NR1711 in my bedroom, where these have been living for about the last month. I also tested these in my office in the near field with my 1984 Realistic STA 2000 receiver, which happens to be one of my favorite things right now. Let's talk about Soundstage Imaging. I had to be careful with my coffee because it's super hot. Sometimes there's nothing in the coffee cup when I drink it. I know, I'm fooling everybody out there. But this time there's piping hot coffee in it, okay? Soundstage and imaging. Lateral soundstage is fantastic. Imaging is pretty good. I wouldn't say it's like excellent, but it's good. It's good, depending upon how you get these towed in. I had these about 2 feet from the wall, and I found there is a sweet spot with these, and we'll get into that in Treble, but I found for soundstage and imaging, anything less than about 6 feet from the wall, they really shined. And ironically, really about 2 feet from the wall, I think they really came together. If you have consistent side boundaries within, I would say like 8 feet or less, soundstage and imaging on this is amazing. Rarely, there's been a few other speakers that have done better than this, but it's very good. The immersive experience is excellent. Wherever I may roam, Metallica. First of all, the entirety of the experience just seemed like it enveloped me. It just was everywhere, right? At the 14-second mark on wherever I personally may roam, there's a out of the right speaker. This sounded like it literally traveled and then came to the back, and rarely have I heard it travel. And I think it has something to do with the tweeter here and the detail retrieval. Like, I am hearing everything. Killing Strangers by Marilyn Manson. Again, at the beginning, in the intro, there's a and depending on the room, again, depending on how much detail, depending on how well the speaker laterally soundstages, I guess, that song can wrap all the way around you. Like, it sounds like it's coming from behind you. And it did that with these. Again, though, your experience may be different depending upon what your room is. If you have a fairly consistent room with sidewalls that aren't too crazy far away from where the speaker is, the soundstage and imaging is going to be excellent. However, vertical off-axis performance of this speaker is not good, and I don't think it's supposed to be good. AMT tweeters generally don't have great vertical off-axis imaging, so everything was basically between and outside the speakers. There was some imaging of voices that was basically at tweeter level and a little bit higher, but this is not throwing sound up vertically and it's going to bounce back off the ceiling. It's going to feel like it's everywhere. The immersion is really kind of 360 degrees around you, kind of flat with maybe a little bit taller. Okay, think about a pie. Everybody likes pie. I love pie. Think about a giant raspberry, cherry, apple pie that's in your room. You're in the middle of the pie, and that pie is the size of your room. Okay? Let's talk about bass. Bass is excellent, and I forgot to tell you about frequency response. It goes down to 48 up to 22,000 hertz. Anyway, Intergalactic by Beastie Boys. If a speaker rolls off well on the bass end, regardless of really where it cuts off or whatever the -3 or -6 dB point is, you still get to hear or get an idea of the totality of how much bass there is. Even at 48, this thing showed off what it can do with the bass with Intergalactic. It was palpable, deep, and the roll-off, I would think the roll-off of this speaker is very, very, very slow. So although it says 48, and some speakers may say they go much deeper, make no mistake, this speaker goes deep and digs deep. Here's the great thing though. Highway to Hell by AC/DC. The bass on the bass drum at the beginning of that song is, well, throughout the entirety of the song, very tight. I mean, and it was amazing, which means if the song is deep, if the song is thick, it's going to give you that. If the song is tight, it's going to give that to you as well. Killing Strangers was palpable, thick, layered, nuances, tone, texture, it's all here. Let's talk about Midrange. Midrange, all right? We need to talk about something first. This is a 2-inch soft dome mid-range driver. If your ear is right at that level, it changes everything. Mid-range is very forward, and mid-range can be fatiguing on the top end. Top end of female voices, top end of male voices, top end of guitars. It can be fatiguing. They know that. That's why they recommend you get your ear at tweeter level, and personally, I actually found it to be sounding the best when I was just a bit higher than the tweeter level. Redemption Song. With other AMT tweeters, I hear a level of detail, even in the mid-range, that is really unrivaled, and that is the case here. The guitar, Bob Marley's voice, there's a certain sound that comes from an AMT tweeter that adds a little bit of realistic sparkle to everything it touches, with a dedicated mid-range driver that is very well implemented. There is a neutrality to the mid-range that is truly remarkable. Hello by Adele through this speaker is nearly haunting. Her voice is so clear, but not over the top clear that it sounds strange or sounds unrealistic. Now this is really mainly for the treble because it's in the, the air area of the treble. Anyway, when she sings and then she stops and then it just, there's nothing there except reverb. And it was something else. The way this speaker rendered that song was haunting. That's the only way I can say it. And really the Evanescence, her voice, you know, and Adele's and Amy Lee's voices are very different, of course. But I've never heard what I would consider haunting from a female voice, except for Amy Lee. And then with Adele on this speaker. Remarkable. Wonderful. Amazing. Rooster off the Alice in Chains MTV Unplugged. His voice neither seemed forward nor back. It was very in line with the speakers. However, if you move your ear down, that voice comes forward very fast. It'll get you. It'll come out and get you. Okay, so again, where you have these placed and at what height you have these placed is going to determine what type of experience you have. And I would suggest, in my experience, the best experience I had is when my ear was slightly, but just ever so slightly, like literally the lobby right here was just at the top end of the tweeter. With proper placement, the mid-range on this speaker is flawless. Let's talk about treble. Treble. Harvester of Sorrow, one of my favorite songs to test treble on a speaker because of the cymbals. However, when I was listening to Harvester of Sorrow at the beginning, the intro goes to about 26 seconds and then it changes and it really kind of comes into the beginning of it, which is weird. So there's the intro, 26 seconds, then the beginning of the song. At least that's my opinion. Anyway, the guitar at the beginning, and I know this is an odd way to describe an electric guitar, but it sounded electric. And when I say electric, I mean, like, think of like a Tesla coil, like a mad scientist somewhere down in a basement or dungeon. Underground lab is probably more apropos. Zzz, I mean, and you can hear like the way that the electricity is interacting with the air. That's what this sounded like with the guitars. And I know I've never heard it rendered like that before, presented like that before through a speaker. It was something. It was very, very, very good. Cymbals on Harvester of Sorrow, I kind of expected them to be really and while still being pleasant, I didn't expect them to be as realistic as... Am I shaking the speaker? Yeah, sure am. Hold on, I don't want it to fall off. Okay, I'm going to move over a little bit. I expected them to be a little, not harsh, but there's certain AMT tweeters that, while the treble is very pleasing, it doesn't necessarily sound believable or realistic. It's still nice, but it doesn't really sound realistic. These did a great job. However they implemented this AMT, it was very well done because they still maintained all the detail and the clarity and the excitement that you get with an AMT, but it didn't sound manufactured or really harsh. I'm not saying AMTs sound harsh. I'm saying that they walk that line of sounding almost manufactured. This one did not, and I was really surprised. Cymbals just sounded incredible. The way that Centerman, Nina Simone, the 16th notes at the beginning, really great way to test the treble on a speaker, not just from the sound that's coming from the hi-hat, but the sound that the stick makes when it hits the hi-hat. So the wood to the metal. And in my experience, if you have really good treble in a speaker, it is like in your mind, you just see that stick hitting the cymbal. And it was really done as well as any speaker I've ever heard it. There's also a sense of air and space in all of the MTV Unplugged records I listened to. And I listened to Nirvana, listened to Alice in Chains, and I listened to Alanis Morissette. Her version of the MTV Unplugged. All great. Gives just a sense of bigness to the music. If you want more top end, you can get more by aiming the AMT directly at your ear. I was a little bit off axis of the tweeter. I personally don't like that in your face, but even aimed directly at your ear, this speaker never seemed like it was just killing you with kindness, as in Treble. It never seemed that way. It was just very well done. If you want more of it, aim it more towards you. If not, just angle it slightly out. I found personally for me to be a little bit above again and a little bit off axis with these tweeters, and it was awesome. What are my final thoughts? Placement, placement, placement. Where you have these, what height you have them at, is going to determine what type of experience you have with these. If you have your ear at the mid-range driver level, it can and will sound fatiguing. It can and will sound super forward with vocals and acoustic guitars. It won't sound natural with the Soundstage. In my mind, this is a music first speaker. Yes, it can run double duty as home theater, and that's frankly what I've had it playing for a month in my room with no center channel as a home theater speaker. And it did a great job, and it didn't sound overtly analytical to where it made like voices and things like that seem unnatural. However, I think this is a music speaker. This is audiophile-ish speaker. With the lateral and vertical, the lateral off axis is fine as long as everybody is kind of sitting at the same area. Now there will be some differences with people that are right on axis to the tweeter. It's going to be a bit more lively. Vertical off axis is really almost non-existent. Even when I stood up above this speaker, when I got about 6 inches above the tweeter, it just the treble just pretty much disappeared. As I came down, the treble came back. And I'm not saying that it's a fault of the speaker. It's designed that way. AMTs are very notorious for that in my experience. So there's nothing wrong with the speaker. I'm just saying the vertical off axis of the speaker probably isn't going to measure very well because it doesn't sound like there's any vertical off axis. Again, though, not a knock against the speaker. I'm just saying if you look at this speaker, if you're considering it, just be prepared that if you're going to listen to this thing, you need to be in the right position. I found them to be the best really about 2 to 3 feet from the wall. When I had them 2 to 3 feet from the wall, the Soundstage really, I'm not saying flattened out, but I'm saying everything came in line and everything got placed where it was supposed to be. Yes, there was still depth of the Soundstage, and some things were a little bit forward and things were right and left. But when I had them more out into the room, I found that treble stuff, especially like cymbal hits, could come right forward. And even though the drums would be back, as soon as they hit the cymbal, it would be forward. So for me, I got everything to kind of fall into place about 2 to 3 feet from the wall, and it was fantastic. I know break-in is kind of some people believe in it, some people don't. What I will say is when I first had this speaker out of the box, I had them pulled pretty far out in the room, about 5 or 6 feet, and it had a specific sound. Put them in the room, just ran TV through them. You know, me and my wife watched the television in the bedroom. And after a month, I brought them out and I listened to them again. And they, to me, sounded much different than they did when I first got them. I know Wharfedale even recommends about 50 hours of break-in or playing to get the best out of these speakers. And that was my experience. I found that some of the harshness that I had heard initially just went away. It wasn't there. And frankly, this speaker became very well balanced. I haven't heard a ton of three-way speakers, and I wouldn't say I was ever nervous to get this thing, but I was very interested. I wanted to hear what it sounded like. This, however they did the crossover in here, it was done extremely well because this speaker at the right height blends perfectly. I don't feel like there's any pops, valleys. I feel like it's a very linear frequency response with a excellent bass roll-off. I heard air, I heard space, even though it's only spec'd to 22,000 hertz. This to me sounded like one of those speakers that, spec'd out to 30,000 hertz or whatever. So the implementation of these three drivers is absolutely excellent. This speaker still has all the wonder and excitement of AMT tweeters, but it's not like it's bragging about it, saying, "Hey, look at me, I'm an AMT." I didn't even intend to say that, but it kind of rhymed, didn't it? The tweeter's almost like humble in its implementation, and I find that refreshing. And it's ironic because when I was actually typed out notes for this review, and when I was typing them, it kept auto correcting Evo to ego, and it kind of occurred to me like, this is a humble speaker, but it has a monstrous presence. And there's a saying that a lion doesn't need to tell anybody that it's a lion, and this speaker doesn't have to tell anybody that it's amazing. It is what it is, and it's not pretending to be something better than it. It's just good. As you listen to it more, it is going to become more refined, and this could be very well be an end game speaker. At the price point, there is competition out there through the likes of ELAC, Unify Reference, SVS, Ultra bookshelves. I have those in house too, and I'm gonna test those. But the SVS is a two-way, so really the comparison here is between the ELAC and the Unify Reference, and there is some differences here. Both of those speakers are very neutral, so each one of them actually has some benefits over the other. But both of those speakers are very well implemented. Both of those speakers are very neutral. I'm very impressed with the Evo 4.2. I didn't expect it to be as refined as it is. I mean, I knew there was going to be clarity and detail, but I was very curious on how it was going to be implemented in a 3-driver system. Maybe some less expensive alternatives, and they're not going to do what this speaker does, is any of the Emotiva line. So the B1 Pluses are $250, I think, now. And really what you're getting is you're going to get the AMT experience. I think the Wharfedale Evo 4.2 does it much better than the Emotiva B1 Plus. It's more refined, more realistic. I'm not saying the Emotiva B1 Plus is one of my favorite speakers out there, but this is more realistic. It's not coloring the sound as much. So if you want to support the channel, you can sign up for Patreon, patreon.com/cheapaudioman. Every Sunday night, we have patron-only Zooms. We also have a patron-only Facebook group. You can also sign up for Amazon Music. There's a link in the description. If you sign up, I think you get 3 months for free, and I think you get 3 months of Disney Plus for free. You can also use the links. Any of my links, and most of my links in the description are affiliate links. If you purchase the Evo 4.2 through my link, I will get a commission off of that. Whoops. We're also doing a raffle. CSS Audio reached out to me and wanted to do a summer raffle to support Homes for Our Troops, which is a charity that I support. There's a link in the description. Click on it. It'll take you to the page, tell you all about all the cool prizes. They're giving away a set of 1TD Crichtons. They're already put together, so you don't even have to put together. You can just plug them in and play them. So don't binge watch anything on Netflix or Hulu. Binge listen through your new Wharfedale Evo 4.2s and fill your soul with happiness. And with that, I'm Randy. I'm the Cheap Audio Man.